I'm super stressed out and I make a dumb decision and I regret it. Those were the opening words Brooke Hogan uttered when she finally broke her silence. Words that echoed far beyond the courtroom and into the hearts of fans and critics who had followed her life since childhood. After the shocking death of her father, Hulk Hogan, the man once celebrated as the larger-than-life icon of professional wrestling, Brooke stepped forward with disturbing claims that ripped the mask off the carefully constructed Hogan family image. She was no longer the smiling daughter who had been shown on reality television or paraded around on red carpets. She was a woman, now in her mid-30s, a wife, and a mother of twins, carrying scars that she said were inflicted not only by her famous father, but also by the very mother who had always stood at his side. The world had always been fascinated with the Hogan family. Through their hit reality show Hogan Knows Best, which aired from 2005 to 2007, they seemed to embody an eccentric version of the American dream. Hulk Hogan, larger than life, was portrayed as the protective father, keeping an ever-watchful eye on Brooke as she pursued a budding music career. His son Nick was the carefree teenager, while Linda played the part of the supportive wife and mother, juggling the challenges of fame and family life. Fans bought into it. They believed they were seeing a family unit held together by love, despite the glare of the spotlight. But as Brooke later revealed, that reality was an illusion. Behind the cameras, behind the laughter, and away from the staged moments of unity, a darker reality had always been unfolding. By 2025, Brooke Hogan had found the courage to say what she could not in her youth. She revealed that she had endured years of verbal and mental abuse that often spilled into physical violence. The shocking twist came when she clarified that the abuse did not always come from the parent everyone would assume. The world had long cast Hulk Hogan as the volatile figure, the one with a reputation for anger and control. Yet Brooke pointed the finger at Linda, her mother, as the one responsible for much of the physical pain she endured. That revelation turned public perception upside down. Suddenly, the seemingly supportive mother was cast in the harsh light of suspicion. Brooke explained that she had grown up under a cloud of psychological manipulation, constantly being berated, insulted, and humiliated through vile text messages and public shaming that tore down her self-esteem and forced her to fake the confidence that had been stripped from her. The breaking point came when Linda Hogan posted a tearful Instagram video in March of 2025. In that video, she lamented the fractured state of their family, admitting she had not spoken to her daughter in nearly 8 years. With tears in her eyes, Linda confessed to the world that Brooke had married and had twins, without ever informing her parents. She said she only learned of these milestones through social media, like a stranger peering in from the outside. To many viewers, Linda's video seemed like the heartfelt plea of a heartbroken mother. But Brooke was ready to expose a different truth. In a lengthy Instagram post, she refuted her mother's claims with photos proving they had indeed been in contact in 2023. More importantly, Brooke used that moment to finally pull back the curtain on what she said had been going on for decades. She explained that she wasn't merely distancing herself out of anger or rebellion. She was protecting herself, her husband, and her children from a cycle of toxicity and abuse that she no longer wished to endure. The choice to cut off both of her parents was not one she made lightly. Brooke emphasized that her reasons for distancing herself from Hulk and Linda were completely separate. This wasn't about choosing sides in their messy divorce or being manipulated into taking one parent's word over the other. She described it as a matter of survival. She had grown tired of being a pawn in their endless battles, manipulated into defending behavior that, as she grew older, she realized was indefensible. For years, she had been asked to look the other way, as her parents' toxic behavior inflicted massive blows on her career and personal life. She had been told to forgive lies, humiliations, and betrayals, even when they shattered her confidence and derailed her future. Eventually, she made the choice to step away entirely, closing the door not just on their influence, but on their presence in her most important life events. When Brooke married Stephen Alexi in 2022, she did so privately, deliberately keeping her parents uninformed. When she gave birth to her twins, Oliver and Molly, in early 2025, again, her parents found out not from their daughter, but from social media. To Brooke, these choices symbolized a necessary boundary, a line she had drawn to protect the purity of her new family from the chaos of the old. Stephen Alexi himself stepped into the spotlight during this family feud, defending his wife against Linda's accusations. In a detailed post of his own, Stephen described the kindness and efforts Brooke had made, including designing a home for her mother, free of charge, as a gesture of goodwill. He pointed out how those gestures were rejected, and how, even when Brooke attempted reconciliation, she was met with attacks on her character. His words carried the weight of someone who had not only witnessed, but lived within the storm of the Hogan family dynamic. Linda Hogan's response to these allegations only added more fuel to the fire. Rather than addressing her daughter's claims with compassion or remorse, she called Brooke a narcissist, just like her father. She admitted to spanking Brooke once and to using harsh words, but brushed aside the depth of the accusations. Instead, she counterattacked, alleging drunken incidents and behaviors that both Brooke and Stephen vehemently denied. For outsiders, watching this back and forth unfold on social media was like seeing the family's wounds bleed in public. But for Brooke, it was a powerful illustration of the very toxicity she had fought so hard to escape. Each counterattack, each denial, each shift of blame reinforced her conviction that she had made the right choice. The dysfunction of the Hogan household was not a secret to those who had followed the family for years. Even before Brooke's revelations, the cracks had been visible. Hulk and Linda's bitter divorce in 2009 had been a public spectacle, full of accusations and scandal that kept tabloids fed for months. Linda even published a memoir in which she claimed Hulk had been abusive, describing incidents where she feared for her life. Hogan denied those claims, suing for defamation, but the public image of the perfect family had already been shattered. Brooke and her brother Nick were caught in the middle, forced to choose sides, and pressured to defend narratives that seemed to shift with the tides of public opinion. It was a childhood steeped in conflict, a battlefield disguised as a household. The scars of that upbringing never truly faded. Brooke described how she was forced to maintain a facade of confidence while her self-worth was being systematically dismantled behind closed doors. Even as she pursued her career in entertainment, she carried the invisible weight of her parents' manipulation. The music she sang, the television appearances she made, the interviews she gave, many of them were tinged with a hidden pain, a constant act of pretending that everything was fine, when in reality, nothing was. By the time she became a mother herself, Brooke decided the cycle had to end. She would not allow the toxicity she endured to seep into her children's lives. Naming her daughter Molly Jean, even while using her father's middle name for her, showed the complexity of her emotions. There was love there, still, even for a man she could not allow into her life. It was a gesture that acknowledged the bond while drawing a line between past and future. By speaking out, Brooke did more than tell her story. She challenged the world to rethink what it means to live under the shadow of fame, to reconsider the narratives sold by reality TV, and to understand that behind the glamour of celebrity families, there can often lie a darker truth. She showed that breaking the silence, though painful, can also be the first step toward healing, not just for herself, but for her children, and perhaps even for others living in silence. To fully understand why Brooke's decision to speak out carried such weight, one has to examine the man at the center of it all. Hulk Hogan, once America's wrestling hero, had been surrounded by controversies and scandals for decades, and each one left marks not only on his own reputation, but on the lives of his children. For years, Hogan preached to millions of young fans about the values of training, prayers, and vitamins. He was larger than life, the embodiment of strength and virtue in the ring. But outside of it, the cracks in that image widened with every passing year. One of the most devastating blows to his career and legacy came in 2015, when leaked audio revealed Hogan using racial slurs during a private conversation about his daughter Brooke's dating life. He referred to himself as racist to a point, expressing discomfort with the idea of her dating a black man. The fallout was immediate. WWE severed ties with him, scrubbing his name from their Hall of Fame and cutting him out of promotional material. For a man who had built his identity on being a household hero, it was a crushing fall from grace. For Brooke, the impact was even more personal. She was not only the subject of those remarks, but also a young woman forced to confront the fact that her father's words had become ammunition for headlines around the world. Her budding career in music and entertainment was overshadowed by her father's disgrace. Every interview, every performance, every chance to step out on her own was tainted by the scandal that followed Hogan like a shadow. But the racial scandal was not an isolated incident. It was tied to another humiliation that had plagued the Hogan family for years. In 2007, a secretly recorded sex tape surfaced, showing Hulk Hogan with Heather Clem, the wife of his close friend, Bubba the Love Sponge. When the footage was released by Gawker in 2012, it set off a firestorm. Hogan sued, eventually winning a massive settlement, but the damage to his reputation was irreversible. The tape didn't just expose his private life. It revealed more of the racist comments that would later cost him his place in the wrestling world. For Brooke, this scandal was yet another painful reminder that her father's actions and choices had ripple effects she couldn't escape. She had to deal with the humiliation, the whispers, and the judgment, all while trying to forge her own identity outside of her father's shadow. The Hogan family's dysfunction wasn't limited to Hulk's scandals. Tragedy struck again in 2007 when Nick Hogan was involved in a high-speed crash that left his friend, John Graziano, with catastrophic brain injuries. Nick served 8 months in jail, but the Hogan name was once again dragged through headlines. To make matters worse, Hulk's public comments about the accident, suggesting it was part of God's plan, struck many as callous and devoid of empathy. For Brooke, it was yet another moment of helplessness, being caught in the crossfire of her family's public disgrace while privately grappling with the pain of her brother's mistakes and her father's lack of accountability. Through it all, a clear pattern emerged. Hulk Hogan often deflected blame, portraying himself as the victim of circumstances, whether it was financial hardship, divorce, or betrayal by others. Rarely did he accept full responsibility for the choices that damaged his family's trust and reputation. This blame-shifting eroded the foundation of honesty and accountability that Brooke desperately needed as she navigated her own path in life. Her career, already burdened by the association with her father, was constantly undermined by the scandals that bore his name. By the time of his death in 2025, Hulk Hogan was a shadow of the man he had once been in the ring. Decades of surgeries, physical strain, and health complications had taken their toll. He battled infections, endured joint replacements, and fought through countless procedures. Still, he maintained a rigid workout routine, refusing to let go of the image that had defined him for so long. But as his body gave way to time and wear, so too did his family bonds. In the final years, Brooke and her father remained estranged, despite living close enough to potentially reconcile. Their last conversation in 2023 revealed a heartbreaking complexity. Brooke told her father she loved him and urged him to take care of himself. A daughter's plea for a father who had caused her immense pain, but whom she still loved deeply. Hogan apologized, though the sincerity and scope of that apology remain unclear. It was a moment that showed the tragic duality of their relationship. Love and hurt, loyalty and betrayal, forgiveness and distance. When Hogan died in July 2025, Brooke learned of it not from him, or even from a direct family call, but through a message passed from her brother Nick to her husband. It was a moment that perfectly captured the fractured state of their family, even in death. For Brooke, the loss carried not only grief, but also a sense of finality. There would be no more chances for reconciliation, no more opportunities for her father to acknowledge the damage of the past. And yet, her love for him persisted, reflected in the quiet but profound choice of naming her daughter after him. The Hogan family story is not just one of fame and downfall. It is a cautionary tale about the cost of hiding pain behind the mask of celebrity, about the damage caused when image is valued over truth, and about the strength it takes to break cycles of abuse and dysfunction. Brooke's decision to speak out, even in the face of criticism, was an act of courage. She chose to end the silence, to protect her children, and to finally confront the world with the truth she had carried for so long. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps us keep uncovering the untold stories behind the biggest names in history and pop culture.